Previously on the Embracing the Journey podcast.
Nobody knows you like you know you. People operate under assumption. And I always tell people that assumptions are the lowest form of reality. Very accommodating to be an assumptuous person because it does not require you to take responsibility for your own life or the decisions that you make.
I need you to talk to us about accountability because we live in a society where that is virtually non-existent anymore.
It's taking 100% responsibility for your life, your decisions, your actions, your outcomes.
Welcome back to Embracing the Journey podcast. I'm your host, Norris Frederick, and we are here with Jamelle.
Well, there are some people that do believe that they're self-deceived, and the greatest deception is self-deception. And so to a person who is self-deceived, in their eyes, they do believe that they are that valuable and that important. But I always push back on those people and I say, why are you not producing this outcome and this result if you are as valuable and important as you say you are? Because we have to take responsibility, and a lot of times they don't like that question because they begin to realize that they may not be as important as they think they are.
So when you give them a little bit of pushback and when you have them answer these harder questions that they may not be ready for, does a fight follow? An argument?
A fight or an end of a relationship or an end of a particular business thing, or whatever you're doing. It just depends on the person. I think a lot of times we tell ourselves that we can handle the truth, but most people don't have the capacity for the truth. And so when you really start to put the truth out there and a person is not ready to hear it, it's going to create a breakdown in that relationship. And more times than not, it's probably going to be the end of that relationship.
Talk to me more about people not being able to handle the truth.
Well, I think we live in a culture and a society that has defined truth as they want it to be and not as it is. And so I can have a conversation with 10 different people and every person is going to tell me something different about truth. Some people believe it's subjective. Some people don't believe there is a such thing as truth. They believe that you're able to bend it to whatever you want it to be. And as long as we are conflicted about what truth is, everybody's going to have a different interpretation of it. And we're all going to get different perspectives and outcomes. Sometimes that's healthy and sometimes that's not healthy, because at the end of the day, truth is not really what we decide for it to be. It's what the truth is. And
Right.
We have to be willing to own that if we want to see certain things become a reality or happen in our lives.
So I love that you said that. And I think that was extremely articulated. Because we could be watching the same movie, right? And your truth about that movie can be completely different than my truth. And oftentimes we get into these disagreements. Well, just like you said, it's subjective, right? And I feel like that was a very important message. I feel like this has been such an eye-opening experience talking to you, and just the knowledge and the information that you have and the way that you can articulate it. It doesn't come off aggressive. It comes off as furthering education, right? Where you're giving people things, especially me, to think about. Now, I want to talk to you about reprogramming and reprogramming what deep-rooted trauma looks and feels like in people. If I come from a single-parent background, a background where nobody in my family's been married, and I'm introduced to a new relationship where they've come from the nuclear family, people in their family are married, they don't co-parent, they do everything under the same roof. How does one navigate that situation? Because again, right, speaking about truths, and this way of life that I'm in right now may be completely familiar to me, and your life is a foreign concept. How do you strengthen that relationship with an individual by getting what it is that you need to feel comfortable and them getting what they need to feel comfortable. How would you navigate that?
I think it has to be a real honest conversation. I think that whether it is a romantic or friendship or any relationship, you're trying to merge histories together. And so you have to have an open and honest conversation about your background, the things that have shaped who you are. They have to have an honest conversation about the things that have shaped who they are. And you have to be able to come together and find some middle ground in between. I think a lot of relationships are destroyed because of a lack of communication. We go into relationships without clear expectations, without proper boundaries, without understanding each person's history and how that history relates to the relationship. And because of that, there's so much conflict and so much drama and so much toxicity that destroys relationships, all because you have two people who don't really understand each other, trying to merge without any sense of communication or any sense of acknowledgement of each person's experiences and how that relates to the relationship.
Let me ask you this. First of all, you're good at what you do and how you articulate. I love it. Secondly, what if there's one person in in that relationship that doesn't actually have the skill set to repair something that they've done? And instead of looking deep within, you're steadily casting that net as the victim.
I think that person needs to do what I call the inner work. You got to heal. One of the problems that we have, and I hate to hear this, is every relationship you come in 50-50. Well, I always tell people, if I'm a whole person and you're a broken person and we come together, that's going to be a dysfunction. And so what we have to do is we have to take the time to do the healing work and to heal the wounds, heal the scars, heal the trauma, heal the deep-seated pain, the emotional wounds, the scars, all of that stuff, work through it. And then when you're able to work through that, now we can enter into more healthy relationships, whether it be romantic or friendships or business or whatever we're doing. I think that when you have two broken people trying to create something whole, you just create a mess.
I've never heard it put out like that, but that makes all the sense in the world. Wow. Let me ask you this. If you're in a space with a romantic partner, how much of that relationship these days are transactional? How do you feel about that?
I feel like, and I know some people don't like to hear this, but I feel like most relationships are transactional. We live in a time where a lot of people operate under false pretenses. We go into spaces, we go into relationships, not really being honest about why we're going into the relationship. A lot of people say, oh, it's nothing, I'm just testing this out, I'm just doing. But deep down, there is this motive or intention for why they're doing it. They just don't want to say. And so when you have a person with unmet needs or unmet expectations and you're trying to build something with them, you're going to collapse the house every time because something is not being true in that process of building a relationship, and it's just going to tear it down. And so a lot of people don't understand why certain things are just not working, and it's because you haven't built it on an honest foundation.
Right.
So it's not going to stand, it's not going to last. And I think if people really can't, I always tell people to negotiate the terms of relationships. clearly define it. What is this? What are the expectations? What are the boundaries of this relationship? Because that's what's going to set your relationship up for success. And that's what's going to build trust. And trust is the currency of relationships. And without it, you don't really have anything.
Right. We're going to cut to a quick commercial break. We'll see you guys in a bit.
Soft, chewy, sour. The gummy experience that you've been searching for. New from Sour Punch.
Goal setting in relationships. How important is that? Is it important for you to have your own goals in a relationship and your partner to have their own goals in a relationship and separate goals where you guys are working on something together? Like, is that healthy?
It's very healthy. I always tell people that you shouldn't connect with anybody, romantic or not, who does not have a clear vision for their life. It's a waste of time. I don't have the time to be associated with people who don't have vision. So you got to have a vision. And then those people that you connect with got to have complementary visions, or you're going to have diversion, which is going to create a problem. So yes, you need your vision. They need their vision, but you have to also make sure that those visions align, because if they don't align, that's going to be another source of conflict in the relationship. And you do need things that you can build and work on together, but most people don't even have their own vision defined. So you can't build anything with anybody else until you get clear on what your vision is.
Love that. Jealousy on your significant other or partner. If I'm having a high level of success at my job and you're struggling and you're stagnant in your job, and I come home and I want to share good news and it's met with negativity, at what part, when you start to callous yourself saying, well, why even bring it up if I'm going to be met with this? While your partner is saying, well, you never talked to me about anything. How do you work through that? And does that make sense?
It makes sense. I think in that situation, you have to really have a heart-to-heart with that person, because at the end of the day, when you enter into that relationship, you want to come home to or have relationships where you can celebrate your successes. And if you can't share your success with that person that you're supposed to be building something with, how can you really trust the sustainability of that relationship? Because in order for relationships to work, people have to be willing to grow together. And if a person can't celebrate what another person is doing and happening, then that growth stops. And when the growth stops, it affects the communication, it affects the connection, it affects the deepening of the relationship. It's just going to create more of a problem.
Like a domino effect.
Yeah.
You done messed around and turned into a relationship coach real quick. But these are things that I see and hear all the time on social media, with my friends and things like that. So it's fascinating. Another question is what if I told you this is what I need in a relationship, and you told me that I can't give you that right now? And I tell you, all right, well, we can still hang out, be friends, be close. Is it okay, after you were honest with me saying I can't give you that right now, is it okay for me to continue to press that situation and become upset and give you like the ultimatum saying like, this is what I've wanted, I told you is what I wanted, and you still haven't gotten up to the plate? How do we navigate that space?
I don't know if you're going to like the answer to this, but what I would say is that there is really no way to navigate that, because once a person has already told you who they are, and you don't believe them when they told you who you are, how can that relationship really move forward? They told you that they don't have the ability to give that to you, and you keep pressing them on something they don't have the capacity for. it's not going to work. It's just going to create a greater divide between the two people.
Right. I only know this from the male perspective. I don't know it from the female perspective. And if women are out here listening, I would love to hear your input. Why is it that the term single women always give the best relationship advice to people that are in relationships, but you never hear men doing that? What I mean by that, if I'm having a situation with my partner and I go to my friends and I'm like, hey, how do you navigate that? My guy friends will say, hey, there's going to be a disagreement, but you're going to have to stick it out. Hear where she's coming from. Try to meet her halfway and hear what she's saying. Whereas I've been in a room with one married woman and a bunch of single women. Conversation was completely different. You don't deserve that. You deserve better. You deserve this. You deserve a guy that's going to do this, that, and that. How do we as men compete against that? Or do we?
I don't think you should compete, and I may not be the person for this question, but my take on this is when you get too many voices speaking in your ear at one time, the result is misinterpretation. And a lot of times we have too many voices in our ear telling us what to do, when a lot of times they're not even in the situation to tell you what to do. And so what happens is it just creates more chaos and more confusion in the situation. So the best thing to do would be to find some point of mediation, some middle ground that you can have a conversation with and both can get their views across. But I feel like the problem with most relationships is that everybody is in the bed with the relationship, but the two people that are involved in the relationship. And that's what causes all of the breakdown and the confusion, because how can you tell me what I'm worth and what I need when you are not me? And you don't know exactly what my needs are. You know what I tell you or communicate to you, but you don't know the totality of the situation to draw that conclusion. So, yeah, it's wrong.
Man, like that to me resonates on so many different levels. Even if you were to transpire this into business and you ask a person that's not in your field, well, what should you do about this client that's been giving you a headache? Oh, walk away. You don't deserve that. And it's like, oh, well, what about my mortgage? What about the integrity of the business? Just because I may not agree with how this person's operating, how many people will I affect that help me do this if I choose to walk away because my pride or ego got hit? So I think those kind of play on both sides. And it's fascinating. If you had an overall piece of advice to give, whether it's to the entrepreneurial world, consulting world, the publishing world, whatever the situation may be, personally, for a person that may be wanting to do what it is that you do, what would you tell them?
I would tell the person, first of all, to get very clear on who you are, get very clear on what you want, and get very clear on taking the necessary imperfect action steps that you need to take to get there. In other words, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be met without resistance or opposition, but I believe that we get in life what we have the courage to reach for. And if you want it bad enough, you'll reach for whatever that thing is. You'll be hungry for it. You'll pursue it. You'll give it everything you've got.
I agree. Thank you, everybody, for this episode of Embracing the Journey podcast with Norris Frederick and Jamelle. I'm so happy you guys were able to join us, and I can't wait to see you guys again. Until next time, thank you.